Hey guys, Coach Jay here. Today we're going to talk about sports help for athletes' parents. And, that's basically what I do is provide help to a lot of these parents. And the main way that I help them is by getting their son or daughter on a better track, on a better system, on a champion system for sleep, health, mindset, attitude, energy, effort, all the things, mentality, all the things that contribute to playing better in sports. And so, hey guys, I'm Coach Jay. I live in Ponte Vedra, Florida. I am coming off of the flu and trying to just get into creating some more videos, but been a pretty rough week. And, I kind of broke some of my own rules by being under high stress and on being on the interstate during the Thanksgiving holidays, sleeping in a hotel, which I didn't get great sleep. The combination of high stress and not sleeping great sets me up for getting sick. And I happen to be around some people who were not healthy and they were sick. And then so I bring it back to my home. So anyway, all that being said, just want to talk about sports help. I think it's really important for parents to understand, it is a very confusing journey. If your son or daughter is an athlete, it's very confusing. What teams do you get on? Do they play rec league? They play one sport, two sports, three sports. They play all sports. How long do they play it? These are a lot of questions that parents have, and they're legit questions. And I don't think there's ever been a public discussion about a lot of this stuff, and there needs to be, because what may work in South Georgia does not necessarily work in Orlando, Florida, and what works in Texas may not work in New Hampshire. And so, I live in Ponte Vedra, Florida. We have the benefit, as a general rule, to be have good weather year round. We do get a lot of rain, so you have to kind of work around that. But we don't have months where we're just locked indoors and can't go outside. And so a lot of the kids that live in Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Alabama, these southern states, they get to play sports year round. And, which means they can play basketball and baseball, football, all these sports. And as a general rule, most of the kids will pick a fall sport and then they'll pick a spring sport. And so, especially at the younger ages, it's probably better to go that way, where, you're not trying to play two sports in the fall or two sports in the spring. And the whole basketball thing kind of gets a little bit of the fall and a little bit of the spring. So it can be a little tricky too. But my general rule for most people is you pick the sport that your athlete likes the most, the one that they want to be there, the one that they tend to gravitate to. And it's easy to figure that out. You'll see the way they move towards certain balls. Do they want to tackle people? Do they want to shoot a ball into a net? Are they always trying to hit balls? And those are clear indicators where your child is leading. And I do think that they are born with a lot of that. And so, um, the the best way to test that is just get outdoors and just play and just backyard stuff. Just see how they gravitate. And I do think that getting them involved as a young person, the younger ages, joining these soccer teams, football, 7-on-7, all these little basketball leagues, all that stuff, I think all that stuff is great. And I think you just got to be really careful initially that your child can handle it. In certain areas, it's going to be a little more intense. And if your son has more of a soccer, I don't know how to say this nicely, but if they're more of a soft spirited kid, they're not going to be probably as likely to want the more physical sports. And so you got to be really you got to be careful about that, because you can play 7-on-7 football and it can be very physical at 7 years old. And I just remember going through that. And some of these kids are really good. They're really aggressive, and they're going to be future players. But I think as a parent, these are things that you kind of test the waters. You kind of test to see how they do, and see what they like, and then it just comes down to reps, spending more time, being around good coaches, coaches that are encouraging, coaches that teach mechanics. And so dad can fill that role many times. Moms can too sometimes. And you want to take that as long as you can. But there will be a certain point where the parent can no longer be the coach. And I have to tell parents that all the time. Usually by the time we get to high school, the parent has to back off on the coaching. They can be more of like a manager where they make sure that all the trains are moving, but it's probably better once they start getting older that they contract out with, hitting coaches, pitching coaches, people like myself, mental performance coaches that kind of work with more of the mental part, because I can be saying the same thing that a lot of the parents say, and it's going to have more impact coming from me than it did from dad, even though dad played D1 basketball somewhere. But he is the dad, and a lot of times kids don't listen to their parents like they do an outside person that's talking more about math and science and just data that's out there. There's a lot of information continually coming in about all these different things, and once I present that information about sleep, about phone usage, that kind of stuff, it's pretty convincing. So all that being said, this is something that I do every single day. I talk to parents, I talk to athletes. My primary group is high school athletes that are going to go play in college, as well as college athletes. And so, I'm talking to a lot of parents on a regular basis about how to best help their child be a better athlete, be better prepared. And that's what I do. You can find me on, I'm listed as Coach J on the Psychology Today website. So you can just punch in on Google Psychology Today, Coach J Sports, and you'll get me. I'm sportsintervention.com on the web, and on X, I'm College Scout FB. Have a great week. Come see us. God bless.